before we look at workplace for tomorrow, innovate or perish, I just wanted to kind of take you back to 99, 2000 when I passed out, from a business school, since it's an academia industry culture conference. We had mobile phones, very limited mobile phones in that time, and when I got one, it was an incoming of 16 rupees per minute, right? You paid to listen to somebody. Today, in 200 rupees, you get unlimited talk time, usage, data. That's how the pace of change has been, right? We look at 2000 and we look at now, what used to be science fiction when I was growing up became a science fact when Sophia, a robot, got citizenship from Saudi Arabia in 2017. I just read comics about, there would be robots and there would be citizens. Wikipedia, Gmail were all not there last 15 years. Uber was not there, right? Google was not Google, it was, but it wasn't. Airbnb was not there. Mr. Narain talked about all of that. So the world has changed. And if you are awed by that pace of change, let me tell you, the next 10 years is going to be mind-blowing. It's going to be faster at double the rate. And that is what we are here to discuss, saying either we innovate or we will have no choice to perish. And when I talk about this, let me tell you about, give you an example from insurance industry that I come from. Let me tell you a story of Joy. Joy is a 4-month-old embryo in her mother's womb. Joy's parents did meet on Tinder, but they didn't right swap immediately. When they decided to get married, they went to a gene lab. They got a gene testing done. Because of the compatibility of gene testing, they decided to marry and have Joy. Even before Joy is born, her parents know how long she will live approximately, what all diseases she will have, major or minor. The way the world has changed for Joy, she will never drive a car, right? Her health would be fairly regulated. So she doesn't need a life insurance. She doesn't need a general insurance. She needs a very partial health insurance with what she knows she will encounter. So from an insurance industry standpoint, we will become irrelevant, right? Because we sell life insurance and there'll be no customers for life insurance. I think what Joy would need insurance from lack of unemployment. Joy would need insurance from how she loses her job to robots. She would need insurance on how she reskills herself. So as insurance companies, either we start thinking about a customer like Joy 20 years from now, or we will perish. And I think that's the note that we want to talk about at our workplaces. How do we do differently what we do? When bringing it back to HR and to workplace, in near future, when you say I'm going to go out for lunch with my boss or my co-worker, you wouldn't know how many of them are men, women, or how many of them are robots. And what to order for lunch. Do you order human food or robot food? And I don't know, but that'll be the future. And on that note, I'll reach out to Vishpala and ask you a question. When we say prepare for the future, how do we do that in a world of today where it's even difficult to predict the next big innovation, and when will that happen?
Yeah, I think Amit, firstly, you started off extremely well. You took us to this land of Tomorrowland, right? First time I heard robo food, okay, something for me to learn today. But anyway, I think for me, as Amit was telling me the story, and I think relevant to your question, is how do you imagine tomorrow and the possibilities? And I still think that's where the relevance of human beings is still going to be there, and that's my personal view. Because where did some of these ideas come from? The Airbnb or the Uber or the, name it, like the Google. I don't think it's a computer that generated that one big idea. So I do think like the future is about innovation, but I do think a lot of it is I think through, like I would say, robotics, and I think the professor here can tell us more, but there is also an element of thinking the unknown. How do you program those robotics? So one of the things in the example more closer home from Uber, because that's the company I represent, is if you Google it and you say what's Uber Elevate, like today we only talk about how can you hire a car, how can you hire a motorbike. We've tried like a submarine in Australia, but these are vehicles that we know. We're talking about actually connecting cities via the air, and we call it a product called Uber Elevate. Now people are like, but how will that even work? So to Amit's point, like 20 years ago, did you know that you could speak via mobile phone. We did it today because you have these installations of the networks that have been installed. Similarly, today Uber is actually thinking through to say that if you have like these big, large skyscrapers in all of your major cities, it could take you 1 hour to get to the airport. But if you just could actually book an Uber Elevate, these are specially designed sort of aircrafts which will be noiseless but can actually take off vertically, land vertically, which today your regular helicopters cannot do. So you're reimagining the possibilities of a better future, right? So I think to bring it back to your question, Amit, so two things. My takeaways is that human beings are still at the core because the reimagination is still within the power of human beings. So that I think is a key role that this sort of an audience will take, and we'll talk more about the ecosystem that will make it possible. And then technology goes hand in hand, because this dream that we're thinking through, it's impossible to say I'm going to stand on top of a building and I'm going to do this. You cannot do it without technology. So it's that integration of technology and human capability coming together which will create that next big innovative idea which will create the future. So that's my sequence of events.
Thanks, Vishpala. Professor, I'll come to you. Vishpala talked about creating the future, taking it to the next level. You've had a stint in corporate, as I was reading through your profile, and you've gone back to academia. How are educators working to prepare students for a job which don't exist, rather than equipping them with skills which, we all believe may soon be obsolete?
I think that's a very relevant question, Amit. And there's a lot of thought, introspection in academia about it. But even before I go ahead and respond to what you asked, let me share this with you. I'm also doing something which most of the elite management schools, sorry for using that word, in India are doing, which is incubation. So I'm an executive director of an incubator. And let me share you a couple of things and then answer your question. We've incubated over last 2 years, 19 companies, out of which 3 have failed. The balance 16 are amazing. They are generating an IRR of 33%. From artificial intelligence on one hand to robos, created by guys who didn't have 2 lakh rupees in their pocket. That's innovation. The challenge with them is that they have created wonderful technology which the world is standing on and applauding, and corporate ventures and angel investors are funding them. Their valuations are skyrocketing. But what they lack is managerial capability. And this is recognized. So once they reach a point where they have to launch themselves and become Googles or Facebooks, they will need capabilities of very different kind. Getting back to this issue of how the academic institutions are preparing themselves for building in their students a sense of entrepreneurship and going beyond the job seeking, is through some of these experiments that we are planning to, which we are conducting on our campuses today. It's a fact that out of 600 students that graduate, not 2% would like to be entrepreneurs, and they are job seekers. But this experiment and this excitement that is happening today, more and more students are coming out and wanting us to conduct sessions on how to create a startup, how they'll get support and funding, how they will leverage the AI labs that we are building up, how they will learn new technologies so that they can, give reality to their dreams of being entrepreneurs. So School of Entrepreneurship is something that most of the education institutions are looking towards. It's a fact that curricula has not kept pace with the reality of the corporate world. And so some of such experiments which are going, and I could give you a list, but I'm sure the audience wouldn't like to bore me with more and more details, but that's what we are doing, so that we may have innovative capabilities built up as a capability very early in life, so that we could also have a Silicon Valley in India. That's our aspiration, and that's the way we are taking a few steps which I've enumerated to be there. Thank you.
Great to know. So if any of you is willing to invest in a startup, you know who to contact after the session. Moving on to you, Amit. I wanted to come to you after you've heard about the future, you heard about skill sets. How big companies like Nestle are planning to compete against young companies where innovation is a core value, and what it all takes to disrupt is an idea, a laptop, and an internet connection?
So thanks for the question, Amit. Well, I would say that, as you people would have heard that, in India, we have been existing for the last 108 years now. And in spite of being a very, very traditional company, almost like 80% of our workforce are millennials or Gen Z. I think few people learn the easy way, few people learn the difficult way. In our case, I would say we learned the difficult way because of the fact that, what we went through during the Maggie crisis, I think was a eye-opener for us as a company. The reason why I'm saying this is the fact that, our dependency on one particular brand was so high. We wanted to make a big shift in terms of our approach as a company. And as you would have heard in the morning is the fact that in the last 3 years, we have almost launched around to the tune of 90 new products in the market. So if I take care of, if I talk about 36 months, 90 products, almost like we are developing 2 products a month across various businesses that we have in the market. Now, one thing which was, again, what we learned was that during the crisis that when we were relaunching, first and foremost thing, there was such amount of uncertainty that existed that we ourselves didn't knew that when are we going to come back. When we relaunched the Maggie, the sense of urgency was so high that, the products, typically delivery of a raw material, typically used to take around 60 days. We were able to deliver it in 20 days. The campaign, which typically takes on an average of 45 to 50 days, we were able to develop in 20 days. Now, the question in front of us was the fact that how do I create the same sense of urgency in the company without the crisis not being in place? And that's when we launched, I would say, a big organization-wide cultural intervention called Rise Together. Our intent is very clear, is that we would like to create a culture of experimentation, and that's what we have been able to develop. I would not say to 100% level, but maybe we would be around 60 to 70% as a company. And what we have been able to institutionalize in a way is the fact that a concept of fail to succeed, where people do come up and share their failures and learning from their failures, because we as a company also learned a lot from our failures during the Maggie crisis. So having said that, when you have 80% youngsters and the organization is traditional, it is quite important for us to keep the organization very relevant and competent. And that's when we are in fact, we have launched the incubation hub, what Professor also said right now, where we are getting people from different functions and they work on an organization-wide project, irrespective of whichever stream you come from. And trust me, friends, we did a kind of a study as well. If I put marketers in a room and ask them to work on an innovation, and parallel I put people from different streams and different, I would say, education in one room, the output that we got was that a cross-functional team are able to add much more value to the innovation rather than of simple marketers. So I think experimentation like this has helped us, and because of which, I would say that we are trying to create, of course, maintaining the DNA of the organization or the culture that Suresh talked about in the morning. And at the same point in time, we are trying to integrate a kind of a mindset of a startup also within the company. So that's something that we are doing. And I think the output of 90 new products is an outcome of this kind of intervention that we have been able to drive in the company.
Thanks. I'm just going to open this up because I'm very curious. We live with this threat every day. And I know Uber and Google and all have been technology companies, but you are in your own journey where this threat could be even relevant for you today. So, if any of you want to come in and add on, it'll be great to hear. Or Prasoon, if you want to add on, it'll be great to hear your views on the same question, to say a laptop, an idea, and an internet connection.
So I tend to disagree with the laptop and an idea and an internet connection. I think innovation is a lot more than that. I think the way we look at innovation at Google is the usefulness of the product. So of course, innovation is one of the cornerstones of our company, and we definitely look at, along with transparency and voice for employee, innovation is a key component of how we are, which means how useful is the product eventually. And it's all about execution. You can have a creative idea, many of us have it. How does it translate into something that's relevant to the market? How does it translate into our ability to take risks? And those are the values we promote within our employees. So that's what we are looking at. And it is a lot about tenacity eventually.
And I think exactly to what Prriti said, Amit, so to your list of 3, I would probably say the permission to fail. Super critical. Like, if you don't give the permission to fail, you will never get the culture of innovation or experimentation going in any organization. And I'm sure like both Google and Uber probably, believe in it pretty strongly.
Let me make it innovation very simpler. It seems so heavy on people innovation. So one thing that innovation is not, you call invention. So innovation is everything, processes, people, the way we behave, the way we do things. And the most important aspect of bringing in innovation is to allow people to express or say something. Let them be creative. Let them fail, as Vishpala said. Let them fail. So this freedom of failure is very important, and then makes culture. Once you set the culture, because without, and the base of the entire innovation, if you go thread by thread, comes out to be the trust. So you trust your people to fail, trust your people to do something, allow them to do something, and then you build a culture, and it takes over. It takes care of everything else.